Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Halfback Dynasty. My name is Brendan. We are joined today with our co-host, Tyler. Tyler, how the heck you feeling, my man?
Feeling well, Brendan. Just got done walking the dogs out in the snow. It's snowing again here in Colorado, so that's the way it should be. This is our snowiest month, so I'm loving it.
Wow. So you guys get only like 2 seasons, winter and summer? How does that work?
It's when we were kids, I would say yes. It seemed like winter lasted a lot longer. We got a lot more snow back then. Now summer seems to last a really long time, and then I don't know, late October, November, it becomes winter like pretty quick. But man, I don't know if we've ever talked about it. When we were kids, Halloween was the worst night of the year every year. It dumped snow. It was freezing. You were soaking wet. It was just, you still went out and did it. But anybody who grew up in Colorado in the 80s and 90s knows, man, Halloween night was awful every year.
Hey, you got to risk it for the candy.
Kids of this generation, man, it's like 80 degrees on Halloween anymore. They have no idea. So
wow, global warming, baby, global warming. Awesome, man. Hey, well, glad to be here. Yeah, it's beautiful out in Chicago right now, so you know I'm loving it. March Madness, we were just speaking about our brackets momentarily pre-show. Big Ten has definitely lit me down. Seems like you had Ohio State going pretty far. Is that true?
I did, which I kind of fought with. I'm not a big Ohio State guy. I don't know why. I'm just not crazy about the school. But what really hurts, Brendan, being a numbers guy such as myself, I dove tremendously deep. I know nothing about college basketball. I don't watch college basketball ever.
Yeah.
I dove super deep, did my entire bracket based on nothing but analytical data, and my bracket is horrendous. So take into, the analytics of sports. Who knows?
You got to stick to the gut. You got to stick to the gut. Tyler, well, don't worry.
Yeah.
You are a part of a big group that honestly does not care about college basketball until March. So no worries on that, my man.
Yeah, I literally do the bracket because I know it's important to my brother. He runs it every year. It was pretty amazing. My roommate, Katie, she knows less than I do about college basketball. And a couple of years ago, I want to say her dad went to Loyola.
Wow.
And so she picked them all the way to the Final Four that year. They went to the Elite Eight. So she won $900 without even, it was over by the time they even got there because Loyola went on that crazy run.
Yeah, they just beat Illinois now. You know, obviously they're from Chicago and U of I is in Champaign. So, 3 hours out, 2.5 hours, whatever it is. But both are Chicago's teams right now. And it was real heartbreaking the entire week. Once the brackets were posted, everybody was just like, how are these two teams going to have to play each other in the second round, the round of 32? So many people felt that Loyola deserved to be a higher rank. And I did too. I mean, they're a really good team. And 2 years ago, so technically last tournament and now this tournament, dude, they play so well together. And I think they have a good shot at winning it. It's either going to be them or Gonzaga, in my opinion now. I had U of I going all the way and winning it all, but I knew Loyola would be the hardest matchup.
Yeah, I'm with you. Starting next year, man, I'm going to pick with my heart. I thought about it this year. My dad went to the University of Hartford. He played soccer for Hartford, and obviously they made the tournament. I should have picked them all the way. My bracket would be just as bad. So because they were a 16 team, they bounced out early, but wouldn't have made any difference in my bracket.
I think what we need to do here is we need to create a blacklist team where we put blacklist full of teams that we never pick due to being screwed over by them in the future. So for my dad, he never picks Pittsburgh anymore because they hosed him.
Okay.
I'm never going to pick U of I. I picked them because it's not often that, a huge school in your area has a chance and is like a favorite to win the tournament. So of course I had to pick them all the way. I'm never picking Ohio State again. I'm never picking Purdue. Screw all those teams. The Big Ten has let me down.
Absolutely. Where is Purdue? Is Purdue in Illinois?
Indiana.
Okay.
Yeah,
Big Ten let me down big time. My parents both are from back east. My dad both from Connecticut area. So my grandpa used to be on the board at UConn. So
UConn, that's a good school to be
I
at.
pick UConn all the time, and they screw me over all the time. When I don't pick them deep, is the years they win the whole thing. When I do pick them deep, they bounce out like they did, last night in the first round or whatever. So
That's how it works.
I can't win with basketball, man.
Yeah, I picked them to lose. I don't know why. I don't know much about college basketball. When you're just looking at the numbers, you're like, all right, whatever. This seems like they'll probably lose or they'll probably win. So I'm really excited to follow up on the tournament. So for those of you listening, I'm sure a lot of you out there have March Madness brackets. It's really fun to follow along. Never really enjoy doing it because you always get let down. Same with fantasy football. You say, I'm never going to do it again. Next year rolls around, boom, you're in it more than ever. So awesome, Tyler. Great show lined up for today. A lot of news. We haven't done our show the past 2 weeks. So a lot of free agents have been signed, have been re-signed, franchise tag. Tyler, really disappointing free agency in comparison to what we thought it would be based on all the big names floating around. So I'm kind of upset. I don't like the franchise tags. First of all, I think the franchise tag is really disrespectful to the players because it basically forces them to sign. Granted, they get top $5 or whatever, average of the top 5 positions, but it prevents them. What if they get franchise tagged and they get injured? Or, what if a terrible team uses the tag on you? For example, what if the Lions would have franchise tagged Galladay? I just don't like it. But you have any big free agency news that you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, just piggybacking on that, Brendan, I mean, the money's great, but if you're getting franchised, you're good anyways. So chances are you got a bunch of money on the market, probably a bigger contract long-term. So good call there. My most disappointing so far was Aaron Jones. I think Aaron Jones to me deserves to get a workhorse workload. He won't in Green Bay. I think I talked about it a lot on DLF. I thought Jones getting franchised and staying in Green Bay, a lot of people were excited about. I don't like that at all. I personally think if he went to Miami for big money, they're going to give him the rock 30 times a game, including passing. Green Bay clearly really likes A.J. Dillon. I don't like that at all. I mean, they paid Jones, so I assume he'll have a similar workload.
Ton of money.
I assume he'll have a similar workload, but I don't view that as a good thing for fantasy. It's probably a good thing for Aaron Jones, like in real life. He's playing for a good team, but fantasy, I don't like it. Interesting you brought up Galladay getting tagged. I honestly think it might have been better with where he landed. The Giants are just a disaster. We'll see what happens. Danny Dimes is okay. I mean, Galladay is a downfield player. I don't know if that's Danny Dimes' wheelhouse, but hey, it is. He's where he is now. As a Galladay owner, what did you think about that when that broke last night? Were you excited, disappointed, don't care?
Indifferent. I don't really. Obviously, I don't like the Giants' offense. I think there is worse places he could have landed, but it seems like they're trying to beef up their offense. They signed John Ross. They brought over Kyle Rudolph, I think, at the tight end. So I don't know. Daniel Jones, in my opinion, this is a prove it year for him because he's coming up at the end of his rookie deal. The issue with Galladay being a downfield route runner is Daniel Jones fumbles the ball a lot in the pocket, bro. And if he doesn't have the time to wait for Galladay to get downfield, then he's going to fumble the ball. So I don't know. I don't think it's much worse than Jared Goff, to be honest with you. I think the reason to compensate for going to a worse franchise is that even though I think Jared Goff's a better quarterback than Danny Dimes, but Jared Goff is now in a whole new organization, a whole new offense. So I think it's a little more difficult for the QB to kind of acclimate into an offense rather than a wide receiver. So I don't know. I kind of like the stability of him going to the Giants, who seem to at least be making moves to try to beef up their offense, if that makes sense.
Yeah, they've made some interesting moves. I actually was looking at possible just buy low stuff last night in our league, and John Ross honestly caught my eye, but man, I really, when I dug into John Ross, man, I don't see any difference. Him going anywhere, I don't think makes any difference. he might open up a few more extra plays for Galladay with his speed, but John Ross can't stay on the field. He can't. I mean, I think I want to say he had two catches last year, 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I could be wrong, but I think he had 2. The other thing about yesterday's free agency or the day before that was interesting, I don't know if you read it, but Juju turned down the Chiefs to stay with Pittsburgh. I don't understand that move.
I didn't hear that. I heard the Eagles. I heard he turned down the Eagles.
He turned down the Eagles, Baltimore, and KC to stay, which I mean, with the numbers he put up with Antonio Brown to go to KC, who has the best quarterback, and Hill on the other side, I don't understand. He turned down more money to stay, so it's kind of weird because he seemed to have a rocky relationship with Pittsburgh the last year, so he turned down extra money to stay. Juju's kind of an interesting guy. You know, I can't quite figure out if I really like Juju or if I don't.
I don't like him when he doesn't put up numbers, man.
Yeah, so I thought that was very interesting. Not necessarily free agency related, but the Deshaun Watson scenario, I think, deserves some talking about. Obviously, I'm not going to get into the personal side of things. I don't know anything about Deshaun Watson. I don't know anything about the legal side of that. I've seen some really bad trades on Dynasty forums lately that people just need to pump the brakes. I saw straight up somebody traded Watson in Superflex for Teddy Bridgewater yesterday. I mean, that is just...
It's not even worth the risk.
No, 2 years ago, we all thought Tyreek Hill was never going to play in the NFL again, ever.
Yeah.
You know,
agreed.
And he didn't even miss a game, did he?
I don't think he did. And what I mean, it's not even worth the risk. My point is Teddy Bridgewater is not good enough that even if Deshaun Watson is like put in jail, Teddy Bridgewater is going to be like nothing next year, 2 years. The Panthers will probably draft a quarterback, to be honest with you. And I think Bridgewater is is he a free agent or is he one more year?
I think he's in Carolina still.
He's in Carolina. Okay. Yeah. So you know what I mean? Like I was offered in a 1 QB league. I was offered a 2nd round pick and I was like, nah, it's not even worth it. It's not.
Yeah, I mean, sitting here today, Brendan, our big trade, I can't say I feel as good about it, but I also I don't think this is the end of Deshaun Watson's career. You know, maybe I'm being naive. Again, the number of allegations are very, very disturbing. But do I think Deshaun Watson's NFL career is over? Absolutely not.
Yeah, you know, my thoughts on it, you never want to downplay when people are coming forward about claims. But you never want to like state that somebody's guilty unless they're proven innocent. So I don't know. The only thing I don't like about all this, like I'm all for if Deshaun Watson is guilty, he's guilty. I'm not going to support him. Terrible what he did. But one thing that like just stands out to me about the whole case is how close that lawyer is to McNair, the owner of the Texans. And like, I don't know, man. It seems like this type of information is too big not for the Texans to have known about it before. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's weird. I'm not going to say I think he's guilty or not guilty. I just think that the timing, as I mentioned in the group chat, I hate when like the timing, because timing's everything, you know, but I hate the timing of when people are in the spotlight. So all of a sudden Deshaun Watson is having some retaliation against the ownership and trading away Hopkins and all of this type of stuff. And now when there's like a wedge driven beneath them or between them, then now this stuff comes out. Where was this stuff last year, 2 years ago? So I don't know. From the reports, I think it's getting worse and worse for Deshaun. I think that the more people that come out, the harder it is to believe that this is a conspiracy. But hey, we're fantasy football players. We don't know the situation. So
yeah, I found the comments Deshaun Watson's lawyers said the other day. Supposedly the lawyer on the other side gave them an opportunity to cooperate outside of court, and Deshaun Watson's agent / lawyer paid it no mind. I mean, to me, again, we don't know anything about the situation, but if you're just trying to sweep this under the rug, I would have thought they would have
paid.
Settled it outside of court right then and there. Be like, okay, what do you need to make this go away? So to me, I mean, where is that just straight arrogance on Deshaun Watson and his lawyer side, or on their side, is it not true? I mean,
agreed.
I'm sure the truth will come out at some point, but I mean, looking at the dumping Watson.
Yeah, I think that. Sorry, Tyler, I lost you for a second. Can you hear me? Okay.
I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's a great point. It was odd to me that the lawyer, the one who was trying to make all these claims, the one representing these women, he offered to have Watson and his side pay him the settlement before he actually brought the case. So he's talking about how it's not about the money. Now he keeps posting on Instagram, it's not about the money, it's not about the money. But then why did you ask to be paid a dividend or paid for a settlement for not, or for before going to actual like filing the lawsuits, if that makes sense? Obviously, my lack of legal terms, I'm not a lawyer. I sell freaking pens for a living, so forgive me on that. But I don't know, man. It seems weird. I also don't like how this lawyer is like publicly posting all over his Instagram about this case. I've never seen that before. Lawyers are a lot more professional than that. So I don't know. I'm going to stick with that. I'm neutral on this. I hope Deshaun Watson's innocent. But if he's not, then I can't support the guy because what he did is wrong. But right now, it's a civil lawsuit, so meaning it just gets paid out by a settlement. There's no criminal investigation yet, unless the police department steps in or the local DA. So we'll see, man. It's definitely a story to follow because this could make or break people's rosters for the next 3 to 5 years. If you lose Deshaun Watson as a super flex quarterback, that's a huge loss, man. That's a first-round startup pick. So I don't know, man.
Oh, it'd be huge. Yeah, I find the Instagram stuff very strange. Wouldn't you, as a lawyer, want to surprise somebody in a case? All of that stuff is extremely
seems fishy,
weird. Yeah, extremely weird. And again, I'm not commenting one way or the other, but we have seen horrible things in the NFL for years. And outside of Ray Rice, nobody's career has ever been over because
Ray Rice. That was crazy.
Fair or not, I'm not saying that I support, some of these things that guys have been guilty of should end their career. I'm not saying that at all. It's just you don't see it.
Yeah, that Ray Rice video of him hitting that woman in the elevator was freaking crazy, bro. That was insane. Awful. And you know what sucks? I really liked Ray Rice too. I didn't know much about him. Like, for example, I would have never pegged Deshaun Watson to do these types of things. So it's always such a shock. Unless you're like Joe Mixon or Darius Geis, like you kind of had a feeling that something like that would happen, or they have a past of doing something. So like if something happened to Joe Mixon now, I wouldn't be that surprised because he had off-field issues before. But Deshaun Watson, a guy who does so much for the community, the one who supports everybody, it's so shocking. So we'll see how that story develops. Tyler, have fun with them. I'll offer to buy him back low if you're interested in selling. But other than that, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just holding for now, hoping for the best. It's from a fantasy perspective. I have my thoughts on these guys personally when things get settled in court or things are in fact true, but that's not what we're talking about here,
Yeah.
If you want to make a fantasy team with fantastic humans, it could be a little rough.
You probably won't win.
It could be pretty tough.
You know what they say? You got to go sign the Josh Gordons, the Darius Geises. Maybe Ray Rice will come back into the NFL. All the talent is in the people who commit crimes, man. So
did you see where Josh Gordon landed?
He got reinstated again for the 20th time. I did
No,
not.
he's in that fan owned and run league.
Oh, yeah, with Johnny Manziel.
Yeah, kind of weird, huh?
Yeah, that's crazy. Hey, that's a cool idea, though. I actually like the idea. So
it's pretty interesting.
That's what's up, man. Cool. All right, well, moving forward. So obviously Deshaun Watson is a big story to follow. We also got the Patriots picking up Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith to throw it back to their 2 tight end set, which obviously funny how that ties into Aaron Hernandez. So
yeah, no kidding, man.
Jesus. But that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I think they're de facto hoping those are their 1 and 2 option. I mean, those are their 2 best receivers, no question on that roster. But I would love the deal if they had a higher pick, but I don't even mean this disrespectfully. Cam Newton's terrible. He can't throw the ball.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why you spend that kind of money on 2 tight ends when you don't have a quarterback. So I found that interesting. I know they're trying to get playmakers there, but
yeah,
unless they're planning on making a trade, moving up, Cam Newton,
I think they're going to move
I can't
up.
even believe they brought him back,
I think they're going to move up, man. I have a feeling that Belichick's going to move up because they also signed Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne, like 2 mediocre receivers. And Aguilar put together a pretty decent season last year with the Raiders. But I don't know, man. And when I say exciting, I didn't mean Aaron Hernandez was exciting. I mean the 2 tight end set was exciting. So let me clear the air in case I get the wrong idea here. I think the reason why they went big with the tight ends is because Cam can't throw. So maybe if they have some weapons that can play in, on the slot or on the line, they can get, 10, 15 yards per pass. So both those guys are playmakers. I think they will help Cam, but I also think they just signed Cam to be the bridge quarterback this year. I think the signs are pointing. Spend all your money on free agency, draft a QB in this year's draft. I think they have the 15th overall. So moving up would actually be pretty easy if that makes sense. It's not like a late first, it's a mid first plus. So I'm interested to see what they'll do.
They are playmakers and they're matchup nightmare. I mean, Jonnu Smith, crazy athletic, super fast. Dude's huge. I don't even know how you cover that guy. And look when they were force feeding him the ball in Tennessee before A.J. Brown got back. He was fantastic. He's got the skills. And obviously, Hunter Henry's proven he does too. He just has kind of struggled with health for a couple of years.
Yeah, if Hunter Henry stays healthy, he's a weapon, man. He is a weapon. So on top of Juju re-signing with the Steelers, you've got Allen Robinson signed his franchise tag. We got Chris Godwin signed his franchise tag. Who else we've got on the list? Let me look real quick.
There was a lot of. I think the guy that took a huge hit was Josh Jacobs. You don't pay a guaranteed, what was it, $13 million to a running back to not let him touch the ball. I don't understand that move by the Raiders at all, but I don't know if that speaks more to that they don't think Josh Jacobs is their guy or they're just looking for more playmakers. But that had to be extremely disappointing for both sides if you owned either one of them. It was funny. I almost texted our guy in our league, Jeff, about Josh Jacobs the night before. And I'm not saying he's not still a good asset long term. I mean, Drake's signed a 1-year deal. Who cares? But that was a head scratcher for me.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense. Why wouldn't you use that money elsewhere? I mean, they had who was their backup? Jalen Richards. I think they had
Richards, Dwayne Washington, Booker's there.
Devontae Booker was playing pretty well at the end of the season, actually. So I don't know. It seemed to me, it seemed like we all thought Josh Jacobs was going to be the workhorse back throughout his career in Las Vegas. So you're right. This didn't make sense unless the organization doesn't trust themselves to run Jacobs into the ground. Then I understand you bring in Kenyon Drake, but Kenyon Drake is honestly a starting caliber running back. So I didn't really understand that. It was a bad move in my opinion, but what are they going to do? They're going to do a 50-50 RBBC. Are they going to pay Kenyon Drake to come in and only get the ball 8 times? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't understand. You go that route and dump a bunch of money there when now your starting receivers are Edwards and Ruggs. I mean, I think personally I'd have looked to add there long before looking to add help to Josh Jacobs, but maybe they tried, maybe they couldn't get any of the big name wide receivers to sign there, but that's a lot of money to give Kenyon Drake.
A backup running back? Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's very, very strange.
That's almost as worse.
Catch well. He does catch well, so maybe they're going to use him. Maybe they'll run him both maybe they'll do a 2-back set.
Hey, you never know. I mean, it does give him opportunity. So I think that this definitely hurts Jacobs' value. I can't see Kenyon Drake being a running back 1. And to me, I think Josh Jacobs is a high to mid running back 2. I don't think he's going to brush up in that running back 1 area anymore. Honestly, his efficiency wasn't the greatest. Granted, he got the ball. He got tons of volume.
Yeah, he gets a lot of carries.
Yeah. So I'm interested to see how it plays out. Another cool thing that I actually really like was Will Fuller to the Dolphins. I was really hoping the Dolphins got a superstar caliber wide receiver, Allen Robinson, Galladay, Chris Godwin. But obviously that didn't happen. They got Will Fuller. I like that a lot. I don't think Tua's the answer there. So I'm interested to see what happens. Honestly, this draft, like I follow obviously the NFL draft a lot every year, but this draft I think has the most potential to like understand how teams feel about themselves, if that makes sense. Like I know every year you wait to see who these organizations draft, but I feel like now is the year where they determine like, okay, I think we're going to compete. I think we're going to reset. Like I feel like the clock is cycling through for so many teams. So many teams that were rebuilding, now they think they can contend and vice versa. You know, do the Patriots grab a quarterback and kind of rebuild? I don't know. But does Miami draft a quarterback and say Tua is not the answer? I don't know. So my point being, I feel like this draft is going to show us how these teams feel they are, like what their identity is, a lot more than other drafts. I'm not really sure how to explain that properly, but it's interesting.
Yeah, it's I totally understand what you're saying. And we were so excited for free agency, and it's kind of been a bit of a bust because so many people stayed right where they were, and there's been all these whispers about trades. Nothing's happening, and obviously it's a long off season. Maybe the trades happen on the clock. There's much like in our fantasy leagues, there's not a ton of reason to make trades now unless they can blow up in your face, man. Look, I traded a lot to lock up an elite second option at quarterback, and looks like I made that trade a couple weeks too soon. There's a lot of owners in Dynasty that flat don't trade in the offseason, and it's boring because it is so long. But hey, man, there's some real nice strategy to not trading in the offseason because so much happens. So many guys get in trouble. You don't even know who, even if they're a good player, not necessarily, they might not even be in the league. Who knows? I mean, they're not fantastic, but James Conner's unsigned, and a receiver like Josh Reynolds, who shined very well when given a more opportunity for the Rams, still unsigned. So I don't know, man. Sometimes it's just, I'm not saying either one of those guys are done. It's just sometimes
it's unpredictable.
It just doesn't happen.
Or you have, the Colts drafting Jonathan Taylor to replace Marlon Mack. So if I was relying on Marlon Mack as my RB3, which I was last year, he's pretty much done. Well, now, especially after the Achilles, but actually he re-signed with the Colts. So good for him. But, it's interesting because you obviously want to make deals and you get that trade fever. Like you want to make moves the second that free agency opens up in Dynasty football. And the only thing that I could say is I think the only reason you should trade pre-draft is if you're trying to acquire picks. I think draft picks are always going to be cheaper than when the draft happens because then people settle on their guy. Let's say that Jamar Chase goes to, I don't know, the top offense. I don't know who that would be. I was gonna say the Eagles, but I hope it doesn't go to the Eagles. That'd be devastating. But you know what I mean? Then that locks him in at the number one. Let's say that Najee Harris goes to the Dolphins. He's the clear-cut 101 in my opinion. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Yeah. I don't like I don't like how unpredictable things are. And it seems like every year, like you stated, there's more and more guys who get injured, who get in trouble with the law, who change teams. It's just weird, man. It's weird. So we'll see how it plays out. The draft is only about 5 weeks away, Tyler. So I'm pretty excited, man.
Yeah, man, we're getting there. I mean, there's early retirements now. You see more and more in the NFL. I mean, yours and my deal seem like one of the safest deals possible both ways. But I mean, fast forward 2 weeks, Watson looks like he's in trouble. If Taysom Hill is the starter in New Orleans, that severely hurts Alvin Kamara. You're talking big assets that should be incredibly safe that all of a sudden look like, who knows? I mean, I've read that the Saints are leaning towards Taysom Hill.
Yeah, I would hope not. I hope James
I don't understand that, but that's going to hurt Kamara big time,
Yeah, well, at least Watson looks like he's not in the best of positions now.
Exactly.
So I'm feeling good.
we made big trade with very safe assets, and all of a sudden you fast forward 2 weeks and it's kind of like, well, guess we'll see what happens.
This is where we're at now. I love
Yeah.
it, man. Cool. All right. So a lot of free agency, a lot of free agents moving around, a lot of franchise tags. But Tyler, let's move into some of our rankings. Today we're going to talk about, we're actually going to double up and talk about ranks 11 through 20. So you see right here, we're going to start it off with A.J. Brown, then move our way down to Justin Jefferson, DeAndre Hopkins, Michael Thomas, J.K. Dobbins, Calvin Ridley, Ezekiel Elliott, Stefon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, and DeAndre Swift. Tyler, this is the first thing that stands out to me. This is that chunk of ranks, chunks of guys in this group where you see the younger guys move up while some of the older studs move down. So you start to see the ascension of some and the decline of a few others. For example, Ezekiel Elliott ranked at 17 overall on our consensus rankings. That's crazy to me. Who would have thought Ezekiel Elliott would have been outside like the top 5? You have Michael Thomas ranked number 14. DeAndre Hopkins number 13, because you see all these young guys who had great seasons and you can almost rely on them to become the next stud. Justin Jefferson, A.J. Brown, J.K. Dobbins, Calvin Ridley. So that's really what stood out to me. Was there anything that stood out right away?
Yeah, it's just an interesting tier. We talked about it in the last episode that, the top 5 is very predictable. There might be a guy here and there in somebody's rankings. Like, I'm not sure in ours, Tyreek Hill would be on everybody's, but the top 5 is extremely predictable. Then that next tier is interesting. It's got a bunch of stud running backs. This one to me is kind of exciting because it calls into question a little bit more of owner to owner's philosophy. Like, I'm going to ask you the question. Would you rather, going off these tiers, would you rather have in your build A.J. Brown, Jefferson, Dobbins, or Hopkins, Thomas, Zeke? Who would you rather have right now?
Oh man. I would take Jefferson, Brown, and Dobbins. Those were the 3, right?
Yeah, I think most people
would
because age is so big in Dynasty. The younger guys are always the next best thing. But you're looking at A.J. Brown, Jefferson, Dobbins, and think your window could be 5-6 years. You're looking at Hopkins, Thomas, Zeke, and you better win this year or next, or who knows?
Yeah, it's weird because we're starting to fade the studs that we're well aware of now. When you're a stud in the NFL or in fantasy football, it's usually like 3 to 5 years, in my opinion. For running backs, especially, it's like, do they translate well into the NFL, the rookie season, and then by their second contract, they usually start fading. But receivers, it's usually like the second or third year, and then they're good from like that age 24 to 30. So I think all of those guys, Zeke has got to be, I don't know the ages off the top of my head, but Zeke's got to be like 26. Michael Thomas, DeAndre Hopkins have to be like 28. So they only have a couple more years left, man. It's really weird to be seeing this, but that's the way the cycle goes.
Yeah, it's an interesting tier because I've been hammering the table for 2 years now on DLF that, like, if the price is right, go buy Hopkins. Like, don't even worry about it. He's going to be a top 10 receiver for the next 2-3 years, but nobody wants him. I would say there's 75% of the community that flat won't touch him. That's because he's 30. That doesn't mean he's not good. Outside of injuries, Julio Jones, you can make the argument, is still the best receiver in the NFL. And he's what, 32? I don't know how old he is.
He's ancient. He's ancient.
Yeah, and he's still unbelievable when he's on the field, but nobody wants him. If somebody were to offer, a monster package, some of the package I'm seeing for Justin Jefferson, and people are like, yeah, pay it, just lock him up. And it's just like, oh my goodness, guys. Like, you're talking about Hopkins, who's had 11 good seasons, and Justin Jefferson, who's had one. But it's the excitement. It's the next crop. It's that you want to lock up those guys before they're untouchable because, my team, Brendan, I have a fair amount of guys in these tiers that I just flat don't trade just because they're at peak value, and it's burned me in the past. Look at Chris Godwin, But, we talked about it last episode that it comes down to your philosophy on whether you trade for the highest value, if you trade for guys you like, or if you try to get a certain build and you're okay sticking with that. Where I currently am, I have built my team around young wide receivers, and I just made a trade last night for James Conner that I'm kind of coming around to the idea not of terrible running backs, but borderline rental running backs that aren't in their rookie contract. My running backs are Jones, Mixon, and Conner. Probably not the most exciting, but you could roll those guys out every week and they're going to score points. But it doesn't look as good as Barkley, Taylor, Kamara, but
Or McCaffrey, Kamara, and Sanders.
Exactly. It just doesn't, but I feel my receivers will carry me longer than aging running backs.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting point. And I definitely understand that people are always chasing the young studs. But there's a point where I think that by doing that, you're giving up so much value in the present that you're more concerned about maintaining a young roster. Like, I see a lot that people are constantly resetting their cycle, like trading for these young studs. So to me, like, I'll take advantage of that. Look at the DLF league we're in. I have Keenan Allen, DeAndre Hopkins, Stefon Diggs, Odell Beckham Jr., Derrick Henry. All of those guys are basically, I don't want to say their value is going to start declining, but they're at that point to where people don't want to trade for them, I should say. But, I won that league because I took advantage. I took advantage of these older guys, of people passing them up to go for the shiny new guy. So I got like Adam Thielen in like the 6th round last year. I got Stefon Diggs in the 7th round. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things where, why are we always constantly chasing these young assets when we have the guys ready to compete now to give us that title?
I think it's, again, the excitement. A lot of people are rankings people, and the younger guys are ranked. I'm not a rankings guy at all. I could care less where people are ranked. That has nothing to do with how I build a team. But yeah, I mean, you're a perfect example that you have guys are going to score every single week. You had that build and you won the league pretty handily. So it really shows that consistency in knowing that, chances are you could plug in Henry, Hopkins, Diggs, and not one of them is going to score under 5 points. You can't always say that for the young, exciting guys. So yeah, I think, again, it comes down to philosophy, and I say it all the time on DLF that some of these guys flat aren't worth trading. They're worth more on your team than you're ever going to get on the market. The one guy I'm going to call out on your team, Odell Beckham, is a horrible asset, but I'll just leave that at that.
Yeah, he's going to retire on my team. I threw it out there because I traded for him at the beginning or the preseason last year.
I remember that. Yeah.
It kind of worked out because I gave up like Greg Minshew, Vaughn, and like McFarland or something. This is a super flex league, and I gave up like a 2nd round pick or whatever it was. I think I gave up a little too much, but looking back, those players haven't really developed into much. So I don't mind OBJ, but he is basically a nostalgia player. So I definitely hear you, and there's no way he bounces back and basically becomes a stud again. That's the thing with all these guys. There's a very small exception, like a small group of players that will be a stud into their 30s. Otherwise, the cycle repeats. I know I'm talking about the cycle a lot, but pretty soon, DeAndre Hopkins, Michael Thomas, and Ezekiel Elliott won't even crack the top 30, then the top 50, and it's going to happen. How much longer is McCaffrey going to hold the number 1 position? By this time next year, I bet you he bounces to 9 or 10. And then we see the adjustment of, let's say, J.K. Dobbins moving into the top 10. It's just because time doesn't stop for anybody. Players will age no matter what. Even if Christian McCaffrey puts up like a 400 fantasy point season, I bet you he's still going to go down a rank or 2 ranks just because he's 1 year closer to retirement. So, Tyler, I have a question for you, actually. Which player in ranks 11 through 20 do you see cracking the top 10 next year, or which players?
I think AJ Brown jumps up. I'm with you. I think J.K. Dobbins jumps up, and I think Ceedee Lamb jumps up. I think, as you mentioned, I think McCaffrey and Kamara, this is their last years at 1 and 2. I think Jonathan Taylor will jump to 1.
Yeah.
And if J.K. Dobbins has a nice season, he will jump into the top 7 because he's so young. I think if Justin Jefferson repeats, he'll be the number 1 asset in Dynasty, guaranteed. He'll leapfrog Taylor. You know, if he has anything close to the same season, you know, remember when Beckham did what he did for those 3 years? He was the number 1 asset in Dynasty. There was arguments after week 7 or 8. DK Metcalf was the number 1 Dynasty.
That was outrageous, bro. That was so outrageous. People need to relax, though. The whole DK hype was crazy.
You know, everybody overreacts both ways. You know, as soon as you're 28, your career's over in Dynasty. But if you're 20 and have 3 good weeks, you're the best player ever.
So I mean, people were giving up like 4 first-round picks for DK Metcalf. Like, should I give up the 101, the 103, and Stefon Diggs for DK? It's like, come on, dude. Come on.
And a lot of that, I think, comes down to people and the value. You know, again, I think it's so hard for me on DLF to stay objective because you're finding out in our league how much different our league values players. Like, you can't go get a quarterback right now. I know you've tried in a 1 QB league. You flat can't get one.
Give me Trevor Lawrence at the 112, baby.
Yeah, I mean, I see these trades where people are like, oh, I got 5 first-rounders for Kamara. And in our league, you'd be lucky to get 2, you know? So it's very hard. I always say, you know, very dependent on league to league, owner to owner, because I think that's very true. You know, I can't wrap my head around some of the trades, and then some of the trades that I've made that I've posted on there, people are like, well, you should have got way more. And it's like, well, that's not true in my league, you know? So I think a lot of that is just, it's so league dependent, man. And some people, myself included, have made horrible trades to lock up players they absolutely want. So I could see if somebody is hell-bent on, you know, I'm going to build my entire franchise around DK Metcalf, and the only way I can get him is 4 firsts.
Is by giving up your entire franchise?
Yeah, it might not be a good trade, but some people, again, I'm going to say myself included, sometimes get blinders in their eyes, and they're like, I have to have this player. I can't not have this player.
Yeah, that's so funny. Yeah, sell the farm so we can get one player to build the farm around him.
Yeah, and I mean, I call myself out a lot on DLF. That I've told you before, my biggest weakness as an owner is falling in love with players. You know, like somebody could offer me a ton for Calvin Ridley. I'm not trading him because
your league is
I want him on my team, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, your league is the only league that I've been in where like people have almost like a set 3 to 5 players that are completely untouchable.
Yeah.
So I like that because you're set on your guys. Yeah, but
it makes it hard.
That's why people are hitting me up all the time because I'm willing to trade anybody. So, you know, I've traded away DJ Moore, Deshaun Watson, Justin Jefferson, DK Metcalf. I've traded away a lot. Granted, if I would have just kept all those guys, I'd probably be looking really good for this upcoming year. But you know what? I won last year and I play to win. I don't play to have young guys to make my roster look sweet, full of just young studs with the hopes to win. I win now, baby. I win now.
And with how things close with Metcalf, you wouldn't have won the league had you kept your team intact, you know? And it's very interesting to look back at trades once they're made and really watch the dominoes of what happens. Because I think on paper, most people would probably think you gave up more than you brought in, but you won the title. So
it was worth it.
I'm just going to keep spouting off here that I went 11-2, 10-3, have been stacked across the board. Hasn't made any difference. I'm 0-2 in the playoffs, but I've lost 5 games in 2 years.
It's crazy.
It doesn't
matter.
A
lot of luck.
It doesn't
a
matter.
lot of luck and unluck involved, unluckiness. You know,
Sure.
Tyler, I mean, this is my thought process. It was a one running back league. I had Christian McCaffrey and Mike Davis. You know,
all you needed.
Man, Mike Davis was okay, but in a one running back league, you know, having a stud running back is a huge advantage because there's a big point disparity. So that's why I sent DK Metcalf for, well, what I thought Miles Sanders was going to be a complete stud. I still am a big Sanders believer, but, you know, I locked up that position. So it's all decided based on the league settings, the roster size. It's all different. So very excited, Tyler, to see if our rankings will actually change after the draft. But is there any other point that you want to make about any of these players? You know, we're not really going into the stats of these guys. I don't think we really have to, because rankings 1 through 20, we'd all love to have any one of these guys on our team. You know, they all have an opportunity to be a stud in this upcoming season. But anything else you want to say about any of these guys?
Yeah, my last thought is this one solely comes down to age, I think, in a couple good weeks. Deandre Swift is very interesting to me. I just don't know. I think his ranking is very high, and I understand why. I just, you know, I ranked him pretty high. We all kind of had him right in that same tier, but, you know, I'm interested to see what happens with DeAndre Swift. You know, he plays on an organization that for years has not ever given a running back a chance to be a workhorse. He's a guy to me that could very easily drop fairly far next year, or could easily jump into the top 7. You know, I think he's one of those guys that he's either going to hit, or he's kind of, I'm trying to think of a comparable. He might be like a Joe Mixon. You know, Joe Mixon has been valued off name, opportunity, off flashes for 4 years now. And now finally we're seeing people that are like, I won't even touch Joe Mixon, you know?
Yeah. I think, unfortunately,
for years you could have moved him for 3 or 4 first rounders.
Agreed. Swift's in a really bad spot. I think he is. I think he's ranked pretty high on our list. I had him at, what did I have him at? I had him at 22.
You had him a little bit lower. Yeah.
Yeah, you had him at 20, and then your brother had him at 16. So he's currently our 10th ranked running back, which I don't know. Let's look down the list. I'd rather have Miles Sanders, Josh Jacobs, Cam Akers.
They're all kind of right there is what's interesting. You look at those consensus ranks, every name you just named is in the span of 5 picks.
Agreed. I honestly, if we redo the rankings, I'd put Cam Akers higher right now. There's a lot of hype surrounding Cam Akers and becoming the workhorse back for the Rams. So will he be a Todd Gurley 2.0? I don't know. It's going to be interesting, because it's going to be real interesting to see what Matt Stafford does in I was about to say St. Louis. Oh my goodness. What Matt will do in LA. So he's got some weapons. He's got a way better head coach. He's got a running back that's probably equivalent to Swift. You know, I thought Swift was actually more versatile than Cam Akers coming into the draft. I actually thought DeAndre Swift was the best running back in the draft class last year, but he got hosed on going to Detroit, where running backs go to die.
That's interesting. I said to my brother last offseason that outside of Taylor, I honestly thought Cam Akers was the best running back. He just played for a really bad college team. He does everything well. But no, I'm with you. I think this kind of like you mentioned with the what kind of team are you in the NFL? This is an interesting dynasty offseason, because next year I think the rankings look way different. You will see a changing of the guard. You will see McCaffrey's, Kamara's. If Saquon Barkley can't stay on the field, he needs to drop immensely. You know, those kind of guys are going to drop. Adams will drop just based on age. Henry will drop like a stone, regardless of what he does, because he's going to be 28. It's just it's going to be a much younger rankings, I think, next year. If Najee Harris comes in and dominates, he'll be in the top 10. Jamar Chase could be in the top 15. I mean, look, Ceedee Lamb is extremely high on everybody's list and did it with terrible quarterback play. Had Prescott played all year, where would Ceedee Lamb be?
He would be top 15 for sure.
Yeah, so I think you're just going to see a big time changing in the guards. Hopkins will continue to drop. Thomas could rebound. He's older, but he's not old. Zeke will drop. It's just interesting. It's just there's a lot of good young players, and there's a lot of good older players that unfortunately in Dynasty are phasing out value-wise.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not production-wise, but value-wise, they're fading.
In our rankings, we have 5. Well, now we'll be sophomores in the NFL, but we have 5 rookies in the top 20 of our rankings. So there's a lot of room for these guys to move up. And I think that this is another offseason that stands out. I was trying to mention that I think this draft will see where these teams feel their identity. They'll see what their identity is. Are they going to draft offensive weapons? Are they going to beef up their defense? I feel like that's why this draft is more important than ever, because I feel like it's making the determination, will teams become a contender or they will rebuild? Same thing with the rankings. Like, I can't recall the last time where there weren't as many studs in the top 20 rankings. It's unbelievable that we have 5 rookies that were able to crack our top 20 list, or we have like 10 sophomore players in the top 20. Like, I just remember playing fantasy football every other year, in that the rankings barely moved until like they shifted like every 3 to 5 years. The same guys were the studs: Todd Gurley, Julio Jones, Michael Thomas. There's so much fluctuation that it's just really weird. I feel like the game is changing.
Well, it's all about the potential. Jonathan Taylor overall didn't have a great season. He's extremely high.
Mm-hmm.
Dobbins, not a great season, extremely high. Lamb, not a great season, extremely high. The only rookie on this list that deserves to be this high based on what he did is Justin Jefferson, and he should probably be higher.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else on this list, McCaffrey deserved, he was hurt. So Barkley was hurt. These guys this is why rankings to me are just never have been something that I focus on, because, if you're talking about strictly what they did last year, McCaffrey and Barkley both shouldn't be up there.
Mm-hmm. So they shouldn't even crack the top 30.
It's just very interesting. Yeah, it's really interesting. Based on last year, Derrick Henry's the best player in fantasy football, period. Followed by Devontae Adams.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I think that's what makes it, again, not being a rankings guy, I do think that's what makes it so fun. And I do look at rankings. I'm not going to say I don't look at them.
They make you feel better.
Yeah, I just don't put much stock into it. But yeah, if you have 8 dudes in the top 12, you're like, my team's fantastic.
Exactly. Yeah, I guess to try to express my thoughts more into words, I guess what I've been trying to say is like the culture of the NFL is changing, and the culture of fantasy football. Right now, the community overvalues youth. Right now, the NFL, they all value quarterbacks now, because you have to have a dope quarterback to take you to the Super Bowl. So I just think there's a lot changing right in front of us without us realizing, because it's only 1 year at a time. So I'm excited to see what the rankings will be. We'll obviously change them up after the NFL draft, because things will shift around a little bit. Tyler, we've been really cranking through this, but let's talk about the 2 rookies that we want to talk about today. We've got Kyle Pitts, the tight end out of Florida, and we've got Jaylen Waddle, your boy out of Alabama. Let's start with Kyle Pitts. What stands out for you about Kyle Pitts?
Man, Kyle Pitts is interesting to me. He's a very solid matchup weapon. He certainly was in college. I think that'll transfer to the NFL. He's pretty fast for a tight end. He's almost got wide receiver-esque speed. That's a big thing. Super athletic. He has the ability to separate, which isn't always the case for tight ends based on speed. He's actually a really good route runner, has really good burst, good run after the catch. He's kind of like almost like the top WRs in this class. He's got a lot of the same features. He's not a good blocker, which, again, we talked about that with Travis Etienne. You can't block in the NFL. That's a big deal. The more I wanted to talk about Kyle Pitts was less about his skill set and more about kind of what you and I have talked about via text. I think Kyle Pitts' overall view in the community is just out of control. You know, there's people talking about in normal leagues, not super flex, not tight end premium, not too tight, a standard league, like taking this guy at the 1.5. To me, that's just, we saw this with David Njoku, was supposed to be the next absolutely. David Njoku almost matches up to me exactly like Kyle Pitts does. David Njoku coming out of college was an absolute monster. He was a matchup nightmare. He's fast. He's athletic. I don't mean to like get on a rant here, but if you're going to take Kyle Pitts at the 1.5, trade back. You know, how many supposed fantastic tight ends are coming into the rookie drafts and almost none of them pan out?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't even view TJ Hawkinson as a real difference maker. There's 3 tight ends that matter, you know? So I think maybe that's just my philosophy, but I wouldn't even consider, again, rankings wise, I get why he is where he is in the rookie class, but I wouldn't even consider taking Kyle Pitts in the first round. No chance.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's important. Even if he does pan out well in the NFL, it won't be for a few years. So
no,
I think that the enticing thing about Kyle Pitts is he can be a receiver. I think a franchise could draft him and turn him into a receiver.
Could be.
I think that
He's
would be the
young.
only. Exactly. So, I mean, his leap ability, his catch and traffic ability, his jump ball ability, it's crazy. It's truly amazing to watch. But you know, you see these guys, and you're right, they don't transition well into the NFL. I mean, for a tight end, he had a pretty good 2020 season. 43 receptions, 770 yards, 12 touchdowns. He averages 17.9 yards per reception as a tight end. That's scary, dude. That's scary. Huge. So what that tells me is he is more of a wide receiver. I would consider him more of a wide receiver than a tight end. But, you know, that gives a franchise the option to line him up wherever they want to, on the line, in the slot. So I think that's very enticing. I also like how young he is and how big he is. 6'6", 240. But again, if he is being drafted into a traditional franchise that's going to use him at the tight end spot, we won't even see him really start to get going until like year 3. You're right, TJ Hawkinson, Noah Fant. I mean, they're cool guys to own because they're young and you still always have hope, but they haven't done anything that warrants them that warrants them to be, you know, a top guy. So I don't know. I have him as a more versatile Travis Kelce. I think he's one of the most respected tight ends in terms of prospects. I think he's one of the highest touted tight end prospects ever. But you just never know. Travis Kelce wasn't that high of a prospect. Mark Andrews wasn't. I think Hayden Hurst was actually ranked pretty high. So I don't know, man.
Hurst went before Andrews, if I remember right.
Exactly.
I could be wrong, but yeah, my player comp still David Njoku. David Njoku came in at 6'4", 245. Extremely similar. The year Njoku came out, 43 receptions for 698 yards and 8 TDs, average 16.2.
Wow, so, that's really close.
Yeah, obviously Pitts had a better year coming out. His average was higher almost by a yard plus, more TDs, one more grab. So could be more explosive, but I don't know, man. For some reason, this just screams David Njoku, who I still think David Njoku is a much better player than we've seen, but he's been hurt. Had the opportunity. You know, he's been hurt. He's not in the right system. I was really hoping to see him get traded to see what he could be, but I don't know, man. You and I have talked about it again. I think drafting any tight end in the first round of a rookie draft is extremely risky.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I wouldn't. Don't draft Kyle Pitts to fill in your starting tight end spot and expect him to hit right away. I think that's more so where we're going with this. If you're going to draft him, you know, he's going to be on your bench sometimes. He's not going to come in and transition right away. But if you have the roster and your roster's kind of deep and you can wait on him, then it's a lot less risk involved. But if you're looking for immediate production, that's why you go running back or you go wide receiver and hope that they have a Justin Jefferson type of year. So I agree with you on that. My draft prediction. So first off, the Cowboys really threw me off last year by taking Ceedee Lamb. Obviously, they took him because he was still on the board and he was the best player available by far, in my opinion. I think if Kyle Pitts is on the board, I think that the Cowboys are going to take him. And here's a big reason why. I don't think the Cowboys care about their defense, bro. I really don't. I think they just only care about their offense. What's up?
Yeah. You can outscore teams. The Chiefs won that Super Bowl the year they did by scoring 50 points a game.
Mm-hmm. So, draft Kyle Pitts, put him on a raw offense, a super talented offense with Ceedee Lamb, Dak Prescott, Amari Cooper, Ezekiel Elliott. Then he has a great shot of transitioning and potentially putting up 700 yards and 5 touchdowns. So I think that the Cowboys, if Pitt is still there, because a lot of NFL teams really like Pitts, man. Like he's actually pretty high up on a lot of these people's boards.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Granted, that's a lot different than a fantasy football draft. There's a big difference. We're going solely for points. They're going to win the Super Bowl. So I think that the Cowboys would take him if he's there. I've seen mock drafts where he goes all the way up to the 6th overall to the Eagles or the Falcons, the Giants.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. And just from the straight fantasy side of things, I think some owners get very obsessed with, where your players positionally, I had a top 10 tight end. Like, who cares? If you don't have Kelsey, Waller, or Kittle, a top 10 tight end is like a WR50. Like, who cares? Like, if you don't have a tight end, like Travis Kelce's a legitimate WR1, like literally, with how he scores. That I think what I see with Pitts is so many people think he's going to be a top 10 tight end. Who cares? What does he average? 4 points a game? If you average 5, 6 points a game, you're a top 10 tight end. And within your fantasy lineup, that doesn't do anything.
Exactly. The disparity between the top guys at that position is a lot bigger than the disparity at the top guys from wide receiver. So those top 3 tight ends are even more valuable because they score so much more. So, his ADP is going to be off the charts this year in upcoming startup drafts as well as rookie drafts. Don't fall for it. I think be very careful. Don't pick him to fill in on your roster right away. Only draft him if you can wait for him to develop for a couple years. So that's my take on him as well, Tyler. I think we have a pretty similar view. Let's actually jump into your boy, Jaylen Waddle, wide receiver out of Alabama. 22 years old, which is kind of old. Don't really like that. I don't know when his birthday is, but he might be 23 at the start of the season. 5'10", 183 pounds. So he is a little bit shorter, but he's very quick and explosive. I like how he can basically his route running is really good and he can create separation. And I like how he can play all over the field. His 2020 season stats don't really impress me that much. Actually, none of his collegiate stats really impress me. So in my opinion, I know you're a big fan of the Alabama receivers. I personally don't like Jaylen Waddle that much, but it seems like a lot of NFL teams really love him. A lot of people saying that he's a top 20 pick as well. So Tyler, let us know why you like Waddle.
I think this year was a little misleading because he broke his ankle in week 2 or 3. I would have been very interested to see what he did with Smith. I think Devontae Smith wouldn't have had the season he had Waddle not got hurt. But I just like it. Like you said, he's an explosive playmaker. He's super fast. He's twitchy in and out of his breaks. I've heard the term sudden. He's a very sudden receiver. Like he's there and then he's not. Can stretch defenses vertically, very dangerous run after the catch skills, very elusive in the open field. I think I think he's a better player than Henry Ruggs. I think he's a better player than John Ross, but unfortunately for Waddle, in terms of dynasty, these type of players have left a lot of bad tastes in owners' mouths recently. So I can understand people not being nearly as high as him. Obviously, him being hurt all year, his age. There are some knocks on him that, I think you're right, Brendan. I'd have to double check, but I think he will be 23 by the time he takes his first rookie snap. Again, not the end of the world for a wide receiver, but that's old for a rookie. That's very old for a rookie. But I think the two Alabama wide receivers age-wise are very similar to when Calvin Ridley came in. And look at how Calvin Ridley has been a more complete player since he came in because he was mature. He was ready to go. He spent his time in college getting better. But yeah, I think he will have a very landing spot dependent. You know, if he goes to a not a great system for his skill set, I could see him not being a great asset the first few years. Maybe being a guy that doesn't pan out at all. You know, if you're not in a position to succeed early, you can look at John Ross. I mean, John Ross's career, he'll be in the NFL maybe for a few more years, but as far as fantasy goes, he's irrelevant. He's droppable. He shouldn't even be rostered. But, you know, that doesn't mean you can't have a good NFL career, but he's had a horrible fantasy career, awful, you know, for where he was a top 8 pick in consensus rookie drafts around the country, you know, and it's just awful. So I think these kind of players leave kind of a bad taste in people's mouths recently. I would take him within the top 5, but that's just me. You know, that's my affinity for these kind of receivers. I think his route running will translate, but I mean, where would you take him on the clock on draft day?
I got him at like the 107, 108.
So you still have him pretty high. You don't think he'll be available super late?
I don't think he'll be available. I think a lot more people love him than I do. Now, it was pretty tough for me to rank Rondale Moore and Jaylen Waddle. Sure. I'm always scared about these flash in the pan type players, man. Super quick, super agile. In college, that's a huge bonus because you can outrun people, you can be explosive. But in the NFL, you're being guarded by the best DBs in the world, the best safeties, the best cornerbacks. Fast, man. Everybody's fast, exactly. Yep. So I think to me, he screams boomer bust, to be honest. Sure. He screams boomer bust. For example, you have my comparison, Tyreek Hill, almost identical in height and weight, and Hill is just a little bit faster, but you have guys like John Ross who were supposed to be the next big thing. You know, there's a big difference between John Ross and Tyreek Hill. You know, there's a big difference between Tyreek Hill and Henry Ruggs. You know what I mean? There's not too many guys that are undersized and super quick that fall into that middle of the spectrum. It's either they're all the way to a complete bust fantasy football wise, or they're a complete stud. So I think what it's going to depend a lot on Waddle is absolutely the landing spot. But more importantly, I think it's going to depend on if he gets off to a hot start in the NFL. I think it's going to depend if he has the first couple weeks of the NFL, I think will define his entire career. I know that's not fair of me to say, but I think that's what's going to happen with him.
No, I can totally understand that, and I think especially for the Dynasty community, the taste Henry Ruggs left in everybody's mouth is not good. You know, that these guys, all of them, outside of probably Judy amongst those guys, they all kind of have similar skill sets. You know, I think Judy and Smith have more rounded games, whereas Ruggs and Jaylen have pretty similar games, you know, and I'm with you. That either pans out in the NFL or it doesn't. You know, I'm sure in warmups and in practice, John Ross looks phenomenal, you know, but you put him in game situation and it doesn't translate, you know. But if he could have a similar career fantasy arc of Deshaun Jackson, I would consider that a pretty big win.
It's a win.
Because, you know, Deshaun had a lot of weeks that, you know, he was okay, but, you know, he had plenty of weeks where he was just phenomenal.
Unbelievable.
You know? Yeah. And I think that's the kind of player. I don't look at him as he's not going to be a possession receiver, you know. I don't see that happening.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, boomer bust. That's really the only thing I could say about him. You know, I actually think that the Patriots will look at him if they don't move up. I think that the Patriots feel awful about N'Keal Harry, and they don't have any receivers, dude. I don't like Nelson Aguilar. I don't like Kendrick Bourne. So I understand they paid big bucks, so this would be stupid for them to pick a wide receiver at this spot when they desperately need a QB, but draft Jaylen Waddle and hope he pans out. That's all I'm going to say to the Patriots.
For sure, man. For sure.
Cool. All right, Tyler, that was pretty exciting. We're really cruising down this list. Next week, we'll talk about Rondale Moore, and we'll talk about ranks 21 through 25. This is a great chunk of players who could work their way up. So I'd still love to have all of these guys on my roster. Miles Sanders, Josh Jacobs, Cam Akers, Aaron Jones, Travis Kelce. So lots of great players still. I'm excited to break them down. But Tyler, that's all I've got for today. What else you got for us?
I got nothing, man. Just cruising on into Sunday night here. Easing on into another work week, man.
It's unbelievable. It feels like the weekends go by way quicker than the week. Obviously it does because it's only 2 days instead of 5, but you know, we're always getting off work on Friday and like, hell yeah, it's the weekend. And then Monday morning rolls around quicker than ever, man.
Yeah, I had a good weekend, man. We had our niece over for we do kind of a horror movie night every couple months with her. She stays the night. We all sleep on the couch, which hurts my age, but it's kind of a tradition we've had for years. So
nice.
We watched 3 pretty good horror flicks, man. She's getting older. She's a freshman in high school. She just had her first volleyball game on Thursday for her high school. So it was an awesome weekend, man. It's we've been doing this with her since she was in elementary school. So it's been really fun, man.
Is she the rightful heir to your collection behind you?
Fun. And amazingly enough, my wife and I did our will a while ago, like sometime last year, just in case, and yeah, the collection goes to her, and
wow,
she can put herself through college on it, whatever she wants to do,
Yeah, that's like a new house,
I were to
bro.
die tomorrow,
Yeah, that's a new house. That's a new whip.
Something, man.
That's college tuition.
Not in Colorado, maybe.
Yeah, you better watch out. Hope she doesn't have any conspiracy after hearing this. Trying to get what's rightfully hers. So
for sure, awesome. Man. Well, she gets the dogs and the movies. So
it's a good will, bro. That's a good will.
For sure.
Some good returns on investment. So
yeah,
cool. Tyler, thanks, man. It's great to see you as always. Everybody listening, enjoy your week. We'll see you next week. Stay safe, stay smooth, stay healthy, keep smiling, and just remember, you're in this for life. Peace out, homies.